All right, well, I want to thank you all for joining live tonight for the hormone health class, is what I'm calling it, because we all need a little help in this area, I feel. And hopefully I can shed some light on this. And what I feel is probably something that most women deal with, and it really leads to a lot of other things in our lives. So it's something that I wanted to do more of a deeper dive in. And I feel like it's really going to shed some light on some things and hopefully give you some ideas going forward on things that you maybe are already doing, you can continue doing, and things that you could add in or take away. So hopefully it'll be of help to you guys. So I'm just going to jump right in. And again, if you're just joining, I put in the chat the notes link if you want to check that out. If not, no big deal. So we're going to go first over some symptoms of hormone imbalance, and then we're going to go into the reason why a lot of our hormones are out of balance. But first, most of you guys know me, but if not, my name is Carrie. I'm a pharmacist. I'm a leader with Notera. Just somebody that loves to help women mostly really look at areas of their lives that they might could tweak, really take upgrades in, and kind of bring that out to their family as well. So it's something that I'm really passionate about, and that's why I wanted to bring you this information tonight, because I do see a lot of women struggling with this, and I've struggled with it in the past too. So just a little bit of my backstory I wanted to share before we jump into this information. So when I look back, I see a lot of these symptoms occurring, but I had no idea it was actually my hormones. And I had a good many issues getting pregnant with my daughter. I had been on birth control for about 10 years before I got off it and thought it would be super easy to get pregnant. Like, it just seems like it is sometimes, you know, we just think that. And then it took 2 years. And so that was a really frustrating time. I grew a lot as a person, but I also grew a lot in my health because it kind of forced me to look at some things. And so whether that's you or not, I think we all maybe have those wake-up calls, and that was definitely mine. And so once I had my daughter, there was really nothing wrong with me, I would say. It was really trying to get all of those hormones balanced in my body. It just took that long. So I see that a lot as well, just taking time for those to get out of your system. And we'll kind of discover why. But have went on to really transform my hormones and my health, I feel, just through diet, lifestyle changes, adding in things like essential oils, things like decreasing my toxic load. We'll talk about that as well. But I definitely had a lot easier time getting pregnant with my son. It only took me 2 months. And I really credit a lot of this that I'm going to share with you to that. So let's dive right in. Here are some of the symptoms that are associated with hormone imbalance, and ones that I feel are pretty prevalent. So fatigue, irregular sleep patterns, cravings and excess hunger, decreased libido. I hear that, well, I don't hear that a lot. I hear of that a lot. Nobody really wants to talk about that, but it is an issue. Anxious feelings, weight gain, hair loss, constipation, and this is really what triggered this class, was somebody who needed help with migraines and headaches. And so I feel that a lot of times is linked to your hormones. So why does this really affect females in general? I mean, most of us, all of us are women on here. So I feel like men can have hormonal imbalances, but most of the time it's women, obviously, because we have more hormones and more different kinds of hormones. So let's dive into this. I really wanted to kind of break these down and just give you some insight on why these things are such a big deal, and why we should not try to redo our whole lifestyle, right? That's not the point of this class, to make you feel bad for anything you're doing. It's to really shed light on some things. And hopefully at the end, I can give you some practical tips in each of these areas. But number one is poor diet. And that's really not what people want to hear a lot, because we have to eat, and sometimes it's just like we're in a hurry and we grab these things and we just gravitate towards easier things to fix for our family and for ourselves, and our diet goes out the window. We're just busier than we used to be, right? It's something that takes a little bit more attention. And so it's one thing, though, that you really can't get over. You're not really going to be able to really balance your hormones and achieve that level of wellness that you want if you don't look at your diet. So things like processed foods and sugars, dairy products are another big one, plastics that you would cook your food in, preservatives, wheat, not enough vegetables, and not enough high quality fats. And we'll go into that a little bit later about how that matters with hormones. But, and also just wanted to touch on this now because I'm going to talk about it later. processed foods and the preservatives that are in there, they have something that mimics estrogen in our body, and this causes a lot of disruption to our hormones. And so I'm going to go into more detail with that later, but that's why diet a lot of times plays a bigger role, because you can't overcome that, and I'll talk about why. So lack of physical activity is another one. We know there's a lot of benefits to moving our body, but yet why does it matter with our hormones specifically? So I kind of looked this up and researched it a little bit more, because obviously we know to be healthy we need to move our bodies, but yet why specifically for our hormone health? So I found a few things that were pretty interesting. So one study said that they're really starting to learn how your muscle can actually serve as another endocrine organ, which means that it actually can create hormone production in your body. So when we work those out and when they release the good hormones, that can help balance the other hormones that maybe are not good that are in your body, right? We'll talk a little bit more about that. Obviously, it plays a key role in your metabolism as well. But in particular, there are 5 hormones that are released when you work out. And so I kind of want to focus on 2. One of those you may have not heard of, and I had actually never heard of this. It's called irisin, and it's called the exercise hormone. And it helps to burn fat, but it also protects your cells from aging, and it also helps to balance your hormones in general. And it's an excellent way to activate this, obviously, is exercise, but an even better way is intermittent fasting. And I've heard a lot about this, and you may have heard me talk about it. I've been experimenting with it, and typically do it during the week. And it's really just eating within a certain amount of time during the day. If you don't know what intermittent fasting is, normally there's an 8-hour window during the day when you eat, and then you fast for the rest of the time. But I've heard it's an excellent way to balance your hormones, and this would make sense why, because it releases this certain hormone. So the other hormone that I want to focus on that is influenced by working out or your fitness is estrogen. And obviously that's the most important female hormone. And the thing is, we have too much estrogen. A lot of us have estrogen dominance. And again, I'll talk a little bit more in detail about why that is. But it's a major risk factor for breast cancer. And a lot of times when we have tests done, it shows in our body that we don't have enough estrogen because it's measuring the natural estrogen. But with those processed foods and lots of other things that I'll talk about as well, we actually have estrogen dominance. It just doesn't show up on there. So exercise actually helps to regulate this out. It helps to decrease the excess estrogen and to just help produce more natural estrogen, which levels out the amount of estrogen in your body. And don't let that be confusing. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But it really helps reverse this trend, because the more processed foods that we eat, the more that we're really around in day-to-day life, what we put on our skin, all those things add up to really make us have that estrogen dominance in our body, and this helps to level it out. They talked a lot about breast cancer and then estrogen dominance and how exercise really helps to combat that, which we should all be worried about. Whether we have that in our family or not, we're all at risk for that these days, it seems. And obviously cortisol, we know that exercise can counteract this, and cortisol is a stress hormone, and we'll talk a little bit more about how that affects other hormones in our body. But cortisol is essentially in charge of regulating the changes in our body that happen in response to anxiety. So we're going to talk about stress next. This is kind of a good lead-in. When you exercise, it helps to counteract that cortisol production in your body. So the next thing is physical and emotional stress. And what I've been learning through lots of different research and, for different classes I teach, and just in general, it's very interesting to me, the effects that stress have on our body. And if you tuned into the class that I did last week, it was kind of about mood management. We did talk about stress in that class, and it wreaks havoc on your body. And another way that it does is with your hormones. And so a lot of times it may seem like, as I'm going through these things, you're like, okay, I feel pretty good, and I exercise, and maybe, I do all these other things that you're saying, but yet the stress level in your life is just through the roof. And that's another thing that's really hard to overcome. Your body's constantly trying to, but it's just a lot of, for lack of a better word, stress on your body. So let's talk a little bit about stress as it relates to our hormones. So I looked at more detail on this, and they did a study where high levels of estrogen were found in people that were more sensitive, that made them more sensitive to the effects of stress. So basically, when you have these high levels, you are more sensitive to the effects of stress. So that makes it even worse on your body, if you follow me with that. So estrogen is actually found to amplify the stress response in the brain. And they really led to a lot of more studies that they're going to do in the realm of depression and women, specifically because it's linked with estrogen. So that was really interesting, but I don't want to go into too much detail with that. But I do want to encourage you, if this interests you as well, you should look up Dr. Bruce Lipton. He has a lot of different videos on stress and how it affects your body. Super interesting things that I don't have time to go in right now, but in a nutshell, if your body is in stress mode, whether a little bit or a lot, it still affects you, especially if you're under constant stress. Your body's in fight or flight mode, and that just means it's trying to survive. So obviously it's not going to be really concerned with your hormone balance when your body is trying to survive. So all of those things, including your immune system, lots of other things shut down just so you can survive. And hormones are another one of those. So you basically would never have balanced hormones if you were under constant stress, which really is not surprising. But if you want more information on that, look him up, or you can definitely go back and look at my class the class I did last week on emotional health. So one more area that you should definitely look into is what I'm calling system overload, which is really your toxic load. And you may have heard that and don't really know what that means. Let me just kind of break it down for you and in maybe more of an understandable way. So when you think about all the things that we are exposed to on a daily basis, our air in our home, outside the home, the things that we put on our skin, the things that we're breathing in. You know, our skin is our largest organ, and we're constantly breathing things in through our skin. And so it very much matters if you have candles or plug-ins, or you clean your house with toxic cleaners. All of those things are sort of like, it's just like another drop in the bucket, right? And it can add up if you're not doing things to counteract that or remove these things from your life. And it makes sense with your hormones because, you know, it's trying to come into balance, yet these things are trying to make it out of balance. And so it's constantly having to fight against that. So it's never actually going to come back into balance. So that's why it's very important to look at this when you think about your hormone health and really overall health, but definitely your hormones, because when we have things like candles, especially Glade plug-ins, and I talk about these things because lots of times they're going all the time. It's not like, you clean and then you're not cleaning 24/7, but yet you have these things going a lot of times in your home. And so you're constantly breathing these things in. And over time, they can cause harm to your body. So this goes along with endocrine disruptors, as I talked about, that we're in, plastics and these processed foods that we eat. This is another way that we get estrogen dominance because we're around these things and we breathe them in through our skin. Estrogen dominance also causes early puberty in young girls, and that's why you see people starting their cycle way sooner now because we're exposed to all these things more so than we used to be. So that's very important when you think about if you have women, little women in the house, if you have daughters, it's important because they're growing up with this and their little bodies just, they can't handle this overload that we're sometimes exposing them to. Maybe you just had no idea, right? And so I'm just wanting to put that out there that it's something that you need to look at for sure. And oftentimes it's really overlooked. So as you can tell, this is, I really wanted to give you a big picture. This isn't a one pill fix. It's not a one area fix, right? You kind of have to look at the whole picture. And I want to encourage you not to think you have to change everything at once because most of the time you're not going to do that. It's going to be too overwhelming. So I'm going to give you some really good practical ways to change in some of these areas and take little steps. But that's why I wanted to give you a larger overview. So I wanted to now go into a little bit more about how hormones work in our body, not get too scientific, but yet I feel like it is good to know these things and kind of understand more so as to why it's important with the different balances as far as hormones in our body. So hormones are actually one of your body's main signaling systems. I mean, it's how a lot of systems in our body run off of. They run off of hormones. And so you can kind of think of them as like tiny little traffic cops. They direct these messengers that regulate everything in your body, from metabolism to mood to sleep to fertility. Obviously, with hormones, that's a big one. But all of this is controlled by your hypothalamus and also your pituitary gland. And hormones are also produced by lots of different organs in your body, not just your ovaries. And a lot of times I hear people say, I've had maybe I had a hysterectomy. Do I really need to think about my hormones? Yes, you do, because the thing is, your ovaries produce hormones, but so do your adrenal glands, your thyroid, and also some of your muscular tissues, like I mentioned earlier. So you're still having hormones in your body, even if you don't have your ovaries. That's a common question that I get. So in your body, there is a messenger system that all cells use to communicate, and they have different receptors for different signals. And so that's how your body is able to use these hormones to produce different effects in your body. And it's really a delicate balance, probably between three main hormones: estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And estrogen is really the one I want to focus on for the next few minutes. And I want to tell you what it means about estrogen dominance, because you may have heard of that. Maybe it's the first time you're hearing of that, but it's something that I hear people talk about, and I just want to make sure you understand where it comes from and why it's an issue. So estrogen dominance comes from an excess exposure of environmental xenoestrogens. These are things that are found in like consumer products, such as like, I mentioned personal care type of products, lotions, perfumes, detergents, cleaners, plastics, processed foods, anything that's really synthetically made, if you want to think about it like that. We think about bringing things into our home that are whole and unprocessed. Those would not have xenoestrogens. I can't talk now. Those will not have these in there. So if you want to think about what would have these in there, you want to get back to the basics of food and of taking care of your body in the most natural way that you can. So the use of synthetic hormones, such as birth control. So that's really going to cause estrogen dominance in your body and just throw everything off. Hormone replacement therapy, same thing. And that's a whole other conversation, but birth control, if you could ever avoid birth control, please do. Your hormones it'll be a while before they're back into balance. And on a test, it might show that they're in balance, but I can promise you that they're really not truly in balance. And if you're having these symptoms, it's most likely caused in large part by that. So I have some tips that I've shared if you don't want to get on birth control. I'm very passionate about helping people avoid that if at all possible. I know it's personal choice, but I just want to throw that out there. Estrogen dominance also is something that you want to think about when you think about digestive issues and the stress, right? We talked about that, and that's really showing us that we have this going on in our body. So how can we really counteract this? I think that's something to think about when you think most people have estrogen dominance, and what can we do? So I wanted to just go over maybe the more traditional way and the natural way. And so the traditional way is by far going to be a synthetic hormone. So birth control, hormone replacement therapy, and it never gets to the root of the cause. It's really just a temporary fix, and it's covering up the symptoms that lie underneath. So I'm going to call that the Band-Aid. But the natural way, I want you to think about it, it's just getting to the root of whatever is going on. And obviously, I don't want to, maybe I should point this out. I guess it's pretty obvious. It's going to require more effort. A pill that you take is always going to be the easier route. And I totally understand that. And as a pharmacist, I see that a lot. But the thing is that if you really want true health and you want true balance, that's not necessarily always the way. I don't want to say always and never, but it's not the best way to really get at what you want to if you're willing to put in the work. So getting to the root of the problem is always going to be the best. Really treating your body as a whole, and that's why in this class I wanted to go over all the different aspects that you should be looking at and that you should realize, at least, not to shame anybody for doing anything. We just do what we need to do, what we know, right? We've maybe been raised a certain way, so these things are cultural, and they're not widely known, I wouldn't say. So it's things that we have to look at and think, what can we do little by little to change these things over time? So how do we go about doing that? Like, it's a few things that I mentioned, but a few other things, and I'm going to talk about those. So diet, making sure we get the exercise, just moving your body in some way, most every day. Sleep is a really big deal, and hormones disrupt sleep. And so getting adequate sleep is really important when you think about making sure your body has enough time to recover and really heal itself, right? We have a little bit of healing going on every single night that we sleep, so it's very important. Stress reduction, again, large topic. Refer back to my class from last week. I can definitely provide you the link with that. Supplementation is a big one for me, and I'm going to talk about that. And I like to add in natural tools, so I'm going to talk a little bit about essential oils as well. So really quickly, let's talk about diet. So I like to focus on about 80% plant-based, because obviously our body is going to be healed when we give it the right things. So vegetables are, there's not much better than vegetables, right? I love to add meats in there as well. Good healthy fats. They're really important when you think about your hormones, because fat cells are the building blocks of hormones. So if you're not getting enough fat in your diet, we should not be eating a low-fat diet. Please don't do that, because you're starving your body of what it desperately needs to be in balance. So healthy fats are absolutely a must when you think about living just a good, healthy life, but definitely when you think about hormones. Obviously, we want to stay away from packaged foods. Buy organic when possible. I mean, I know these things you've heard, but yet now you know why they really matter when you think about balancing your hormones and getting everything kind of back in check. I try to avoid sugar when all possible as well. It creates inflammation in your body, which is kind of counterintuitive to balancing your body. And there's not really much benefit at all to sugar. And then I don't eat very many grains, because a lot of times that can really play a part in the xenoestrogen and estrogen dominance as well. Obviously, water is really important. I'm not going to go too much into that, but let's dip onto supplementation, because I want to have enough time if you guys have any questions specifically about anything that's going on with you. So there's lots that I could say about supplementation. I wanted to kind of give you a good little checklist to say, okay, am I doing these different things? What can I add in? What can I continue? And not to overwhelm you with all the different options that there are. Lifelong vitality is super key in just overall health, but for sure hormones, because again, we're trying to bring the body back to balance. So it's going to be very important to give your body what it needs in a good foundation so that it can run properly and your cells can function properly. Because again, all this goes back to cellular function, because these hormones, excuse me, I'm going to get some water, my throat dry. All these cells, it really matters what shape they're in. And this is the best way to support your cells at that level. Like, really not much else can. So Lifelong Vitality is a 3-part supplement pack that I won't go too much detail in now. Can definitely give you some more information if you're not familiar with it, but that's a must for sure. Another supplement is Phytoestrogen. And you may not be as familiar with this. It's actually really, really important when you think about balancing your estrogen levels, because so there's different types of estrogen in your body, right? There's natural estrogen, and then there's the xenoestrogens that come from outside sources. So these xenoestrogens, they're kind of like the bully. They're loud, they want to be in charge, and then the natural estrogen is kind of like the quiet kid on the playground. And I want you to think about phytoestrogens as just somebody that comes in and just stomps the bully. I mean, it basically helps your body to rid itself of those xenoestrogens, and it allows your body to produce the natural estrogen that it needs. to function properly. So it's really going to help balance that out. And I actually didn't know about this and know kind of what it did. And when I was going through all that, just trying to get pregnant again, I really looked into this, added it into my supplement routine, and I saw a big difference. So this is something that is definitely going to help when you think about hormones. I take 2 of these every night, and if I miss or if I run out, I can definitely tell a difference. Some of these symptoms that I mentioned at the first of the class will start coming up. So it's something that I like to take on an ongoing basis, even though, I'm not trying to conceive, obviously, right? Well, you didn't know that, but anyway, I'm not. So I still want to keep my hormones in check, right? And it's something that I feel like plays a really big part in it. So one more thing to add into this little trio that I'm going to recommend if this is completely new to you. So Lifelong Vitality, Phytoestrogen, and also Clary Calm is an oil blend that's really great for balancing your hormones that I like to really encourage you to use every day, because it's a blend of oil. So it's going to really help with different parts of your cycle. It's going to help with different hormones in your body to really bring them back to balance. And this blend I did a lot of research on when I was trying to conceive. That was 5 years ago. But it's got some really important ones in there to help regulate your cycle, which, for some of us may be an issue, some not, but it's still going to help balance your hormones in whatever way they need to be. And it's a really great blend for that. So I would recommend using that twice a day until you get your hormones more back in balance. And I normally use it once a day. So you just kind of have to play it by ear on that, but that's definitely something that I would recommend adding in. Okay, so that is the bulk of the class. I wanted to just direct you, if you have the sheet that you're taking notes on, I wanted to share mine in just a filled-in version. Thought it might be helpful. Let me share my screen really quick. Let me get some of this cleared off. And if you have any questions specifically, please go ahead and drop them into the chat. If you want to just say, I have a question, and then you can mute yourself, that's totally fine. Let me get rid of this. Okay, so this is the sheet that I made, and I kind of just filled it out in a way that maybe would be helpful. And if you don't have the sheet, that's totally fine. But I feel that it's really important that as you learn this information, to just kind of do an inventory. Obviously, take notes about some of the impact of hormones and the science behind that and the way they work in your body. But yet, take inventory on the areas that you need to look at for hormone balance. So I have some of these listed here. If you can see it, if not, I have diet, exercise, fragrance, cleaning, plastics, toxic load, stress, and then I have another place for you to put the areas that need most attention, because you're not going to be able to do all of this at one time. So I don't want to overwhelm you. I want to give you some really practical ways to move forward. So I kind of just rank these in kind of order of importance maybe. And two, I wanted to keep in mind things that you could easily do, and not just, obviously diet's going to be a really important, but I didn't want to put that as number one because that's going to take a little bit of time. But what I found is if you maybe start with some of the other things, that's going to fall into place, because that's a biggie, right? And that's definitely going to take more time. So I rank these in order of importance, I would say. So fragrance, stress is a really big one. Plastics, that's kind of easy to replace over time, to replace the things that you're storing your food in to glass or stainless steel. So sleep is a big one. So trying to get adequate rest. There's lots of different things I could talk about on these, but I wanted to keep this class a little bit shorter. So we have toxic load. Those are things like cleaners, things that you're putting on your skin, exercise, and then I actually put diet at the bottom. Because again, you have to think about it as little degrees of change over time, and light switches are flipped on. And so when you start to look at these things in your life and maybe spend more time, because the thing is, if we put attention on one area, it's like it lights it up, right? We're going to see things change in that area, but then I think you'll realize they actually change all in your life, right? Not just in that one area. So I like to take that approach in anything. So I wanted to just mention that in here, not to overwhelm you. And then on the next page, I wanted to put just something for you going forward. Of the things I mentioned, things that you want to continue, things that you want to add in that I mentioned. and things that you might want to crowd out. And by crowd out, I mean things like processed foods. Maybe you want to change the cleaners in your home. Maybe you want to get rid of the fragrance that maybe you're putting on perfume, or maybe you have fragrance lotion. And definitely sodas, right? Maybe to me, that's easy to crowd out if you just drink more water. So that's kind of why I put it in that category. But hopefully this helps you in thinking about ways that you can move forward. And this is really about overall health. But I think that really in anything, it's all about having an intention. And if that's your hormones, it's going to affect the rest of your health as well. And then lastly, just trying to anchor your day in the morning and in the evening is the best way that I've found to really get into a good routine, because it's all about habits. And if we can get into good habits in the morning and the evening, things will fall more into place during the day, and it doesn't seem so overwhelming. So a few that I had put on here: anchor your day in the morning. For me, getting up before the rest of the house, that decreases stress for me. I go ahead and drink a full glass of water before I drink anything else. I usually try to exercise before 9 or 10 in the morning, or definitely before lunch. I find that it works best for me. So just go on a walk, move your body some way. And then I like to put Clarity, Calm, and Imbalance on as well, some essential oils that really help with stress, but also help with hormones. And then in the evening, just putting your phone away an hour before bed, not just constantly sitting there and scrolling. That really makes me more anxious and more stressed. Take a bath. I'm a really big proponent of baths, if you don't know me. Diffuse, a great essential oil that you love. It's really going to help your stress levels. It's going to help your mind kind of shut off, your body get ready for bed. And then I like to apply Clarity Calm again at night if you're doing it twice a day. So think about ways that you could set your day up that it's really easy to do these things, and it just becomes habit. I'm going to stop sharing really quick. And okay, thanks, Keisha. Well, I don't see any questions. Does anybody have anything that they want to share, or that they have a question about? Anything that they might want more information about, perhaps? If not, I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. I enjoyed putting it together, and I learned a good bit from putting it together. So please share this out if you have anybody that told you they were going to come. And I know there's a lot of people that couldn't jump on, so I'm definitely going to send them the recording. But you can feel free to share this out and send them to me if they have any questions about it. And I'm always wanting to help whoever I can. So I enjoyed being with you. I hope you enjoyed the new format. Let me know if you like Zoom, or if you'd rather me be on social. I'm always trying to just see what works best. But I'm really glad you ended up joining live with me tonight, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye, everyone.